Hi, I'm Desiree. Welcome to today's Top 5. Today we'll be going over the top 5 hairstyles for ladies in the 1950s. Coming in at number 1 is the poodle cut. It was also known as the bubble or curly bob. This hairdo was made popular by actresses like Peggy Garner, Faye Emerson, Denise Darcel, Ann Suthers, and Lucille Ball. All of these ladies sported this clip. The poodle cut was given its name due to the fact that the permed, tight curls closely resembled the curly hair of a poodle. In 1952, salons were reporting that 3 out of 5 haircuts were being cut into the poodle clip. The trend started in the 1940s with actress Betty Grable. Her long hair was tightly curled and upswept into a poof on top of the head. Lucille Ball continued the hairstyle in the 50s, at first gathering hair up on top, then a bit shorter with curls combed to the side, and finally shortening her hair further into an all-over curly bob. Also called the bubble cut, it was worn by Jackie Kennedy on her wedding day in 1953. For women who chose the poodle, bubble, or curly bob, they had to use 125 curlers to set the hairstyle after each washing. Hair had to be recut every 2 weeks as well. It was the ideal cut for mature women and the perfect balance to full dresses. Straight-haired women turned to the permanent wave machine to get the poodle clip to hold for up to 6 weeks. The Tony or the lift perm created the best curl. Some critics said the poodle cut belonged on poodles, not women. The very short overall curl was not very feminine on most face shapes. A slightly longer curly bob was more flattering. Instead of the hair piled on top, the curls filled out the sides, tapering down to the ears or chin. Hair could be swept back, parted in the middle, or brought to one side with curls for bangs. This proved to be a longer-lasting hairstyle, although Lucille Ball kept her iconic poodle for most of her career. Moving on to number 2, the bouffant. Perhaps one of the most prevalent styles of the 50s was the bouffant, which would later give way to the amped-up, towering beehive style. It involved dramatic volume, backcombing, and ample use of hairspray. Stars like Connie Francis and Sophia Loren, who brought the European bouffant to the United States, were fans of the look. But it was the First Lady, Jackie Kennedy, who was the first famous woman to adopt the bouffant hairstyle. Her bouffant was relaxed but youthful. The modern bouffant started in the mid-1950s, getting both larger and more popular by the end of the decade. The late 1950s also saw the hair piled on top of the head, and this was a forerunner of the beehive. The main elements of a bouffant hairstyle were volume and height. Backcombing and hairspray were needed to keep this look set and rocked solid. Ultimately, women might not touch their bouffant until it needed washing out completely. Large wire mesh rollers were now on the market, and these were used to help set the hair with the lift needed for a bouffant style. The bob and the Italian cut were both short hairstyles that were quickly outdated when the new bouffant hairstyle developed around 1957. It would take a few years to morph into the 1960s beehive, but the beginnings were formed in the late 50s. At first, the Italian cut was grown out with more volume shaped upward on top of the crown. Gradually, it lengthened to the chin where the hair was swept up and back. The 1950s bouffant still had a tousled look, not as smooth as the 1960s bouffant. In shorter styles, it looked like a shaggy Italian cut. Longer hair gave more options for styling the hair upwards to new heights. Brushing the hair backward instead of around the face was also a new concept for the 1950s. Many short hairstyles in 1959 curled hair backward, exposing the forehead. These newer high-top hairstyles influenced women's hat designs. Hats were being made wider and taller than prior years, enhancing the bouffant hairstyles. Since hat wearing was in a sharp decline, millinery designers were trying anything to bring women back to them. To achieve the 1950s bouffant hairstyle, hair was set in large mesh rollers or empty juice cans, air dried and backcombed teased to create height on top of the sides. This teasing gave it the nickname the Teasy Weezy hairstyle. A lot of hairspray held the bouffant in place all day. Sales for hairspray, rat combs, and blow dryers surged during this time. It wasn't uncommon to see women out shopping with hair set in rollers and wrapped in a silk scarf. All right, moving on. Number 3, we have the pixie cut. The pixie. So though the pixie gained even greater momentum during the 1960s, Audrey Hepburn's closely cropped hair in the popular film Roman Holiday began a trend of super short hair coupled with soft, wispy bangs that remains popular today. For most of Western history, women were expected to have long hair once they reached adulthood. You'd wear it up once you reached marriageable age, and nobody except your husband or close friends or family would ever see you with your hair down again. But it was expected to be long and beautiful. That's why the bob and later the pixie were such radical cuts, because they totally confronted what Western society had come to accept as being how women should look. Number 4, the fringe. Bangs. So short, full-range bangs began to grow in popularity in the 1950s, especially when paired with long, curly locks made to look natural. Pinup model Betty Page popularized the sultry look in her signature dark shade. Today, fringe and bangs are still very popular. Lastly, we have number 5, the page boy or brushed under bob. This popular hairstyle could vary in length from quite a short bob to shoulder length. The hair was styled to be sleek and smooth, possibly with a slight wave at the front or the sides. That all depended on the wearer's choice. Ultimately, the ends of the hair were always turned under in a continuous and smooth U-shaped roll. Grace Kelly often wore her jaw-length hair in a sleek page boy. Marilyn Monroe sometimes styled her hair this way too. This popular hairstyle was often paired with a side part to create a look that was smooth and manicured. The page boy was especially popular in the early 50s, but remained in use until the 60s, when it turned outward into a flip. The general shape was that of a straight flat hair on top and sides with a tightly rolled bottom and front edges facing the neck. The rolls could fall from ear to neck or be one length at the shoulder only. Shorter chin-length versions were also popular with teens in the early 50s. If hair was one length or bangs were long, they could be pulled and pinned to the sides for halfway to the back of the head for a faux page boy style. In later years, page boys with short bangs were the more youthful look, with the hair length touching the shoulders. Well, that's all for today's top 5. I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you next time.